All right, let's turn the music down just a little bit today, and we'll get rolling here in just a minute. We're gonna, all right. Well, I enabled DVR, DVR, so hopefully those who are joining us late can come catch up on this video or know what's going on here. I am starting a development for the game TerraFarmers. I'm going to be doing this kind of solo. Maybe we'll pick up some other developers along the way, those who are interested. I really just want this to kind of be a passion indie project. We're going to be using the game engine GDevelop. So hopefully that's of interest. I am a pixel artist, and I'm still kind of developing those skills, but I'll be doing a lot of pixel drawings as well as some just general game development. So if you guys got any questions or just want to chat, let's do that. So let me set up, I realized I didn't set up my scene. So we're going to capture my desktop real quick. That's a new folder. Sorry about the black screen. Let's see here. We want to change this from a game capture to a screen capture. Add source. Screen. There we go. Let me just get that to size here for you guys. Sorry about that. Actually, I think it is full size. Let me know if you guys can see that. Got a little bit of YouTube playing in the corner, so. All right. Let's see what happens here. Well, I started prototyping this already. And it ran into a little bit of kerfuffle with the way I started the coding. So I think this time around, what I would like to do is start with a more refined system. And so what I want to be doing today is doing finite state machines. I have another one of my game projects open here, so I can borrow on that development in that format. Let me pull this up so I have chat open, just in case. I don't want to miss you guys. That would be awful. Be awful. Let's see here. How do I pop this out? Chat, pop out. Go gadget chat. Where's it at? Let's see. Let's go to our live stream real quick. Let's restore the chat window and pop it out. There it is. Oh, thanks, State Farm. I love your advertisements here. All right. We've got chat open. Perfect. And now I can see what I'm doing. All right. So in GDevelop, this is kind of a drag drop. What you see is what you get. HTML5 and JavaScript engine. For those that are interested, I find it a very useful tool for prototyping. I don't know that in the long term of this development, I want necessarily to have the game be entirely in this engine. I think I will move it to Godot, but while I'm learning that process, I figured we might as well build the fundamentals here. So what I want to start off with is generating taking the default scene and changing this to the game scene. This will be the main code sheet that processes all of our game logic. From there, I think what I want to do actually is I want to make a set of a scene group here. You're in my way there. So I'm going to close that. Make a new group, and we're going to call this the debug group. Now, in the debug group, everything that we want to process in this game, looking at information while we're building, making sure that we can see what player state we're in or anything like that. We definitely want to set it up as a debug feature, and that way at the push of a button we can hide all of that. So just to get kind of started, I always start with a debug group. Now that we have that group built, we can start with at the beginning of, or let's see, it's scene start, I believe it's at the beginning of a scene. We want to hide our debug group. So that way, at the beginning of the game, no matter what happens, our debug screen is off. And now we kind of go into the fundamentals of what our game's going to be. So if we have various monsters or players, we need to be able to develop a state machine to be able to handle the logic for the gameplay flow. So the first thing I want to do here is right click and create a new event group. And in that event group, we're going to call this camera settings. Let's see. We want another event group, and this is just so we can stay organized. We'll call this player events. And then we can do, let's see, enemy events, and we'll do debug events. Let's see. Oops. And debug events. All right. So now that we have our basic flow started, we want to create a new external event. External events allow us to kind of create a new event sheet to keep organized, and we can pull those in. So we're going to start with the camera manager. And the camera manager is going to run all of our game code for our camera. And so we can go in our camera settings, open up this little section here, adding a new event sheet basically. And we're going to include, let's see, events. I'm trying to remember how to do this real quick. I think actually I have to do, sometimes you have to do a special right click, event sheet, add, oh sure, there's event group. Link internal, there it is. All right, it is one of those. All right, so the first thing we want to do is we want to import everything into, at the beginning of the scene, import always our camera manager. And we can just control click to open that up. We're going to set that event sheet for the camera manager to be separate there, I guess. Let's see here. Now, inside of the game scene, we know that because we're going to be developing a 2D game, we need to zoom in. So this is I have this screen size set to let's see, 1280 by 720, and that way it's compatible with most desktops, or nearly every desktop, as well as most mobile devices, because I want this game to be able to be played on both. So yeah, let's go to the next bit here. We know that at the beginning of the scene, we want, so at the beginning of the event, we want to scene. My phone is blowing up. We want to change, let's see, camera. We want to zoom in on our camera, and we want that to just kind of stay the way it is, and we'll zoom in. Let's try, maybe we'll do 3. Do a 3 times zoom on this game. And we want always, not just the beginning of the scene, we want a new event. And we always want the camera to be zoomed in on the player. So we need to create a player. So the first thing we're going to do here is go sprite, add sprite. We're going to call this player. Now, I'm going to be developing this in mind to be able to be multiplayer experienced. So I need to create what we call kind of replicatable. Now that's a term that's widely used now in Unreal. Excuse me, the Unreal game engine, but I kind of, in this case, want to use that logic, kind of making sure that everything I do can be implemented into multiplayer. So having everything as finite states allows me to kind of do that. So there's not just one player just kind of controlling everything. We want to minimize the player's interaction or control over the server, because that's how you open up gates to like hacking and cracking of your game. And so we want to make sure that we're focusing on creating these self-contained replicatable events systems. So we're going to create the player. We're going to give that player the behavior of a top-down movement. And so we're going to do top-down movement in 4 directions. We're going to do acceleration 800 in both directions. We'll do 200. We don't want any rotation. And we're going to leave off the isometric controls. So we have now behavioral movement. Let's apply that. Go back into our player. It's time to add some animations. Now, I have done this already and configured some of my tile spread into a character. So let's work on that. Let's import all this stuff. Let's see here. I need to get to my project folder on my desktop. Exo TerraFarmers. Single player idle. We'll start with the idle down animation. Yeah, we'll start with that. We would like to copy them into our main game folder. So now we can call this one idle down. Let's do this. Oh, it's gonna drive me nuts. I'm gonna just do camel casing. All right, here, let's go to the next one. We'll do, this can be idle right. Another one can be idle left. And another one to be idle up. Down, right, left. We're gonna rearrange this actually so that it is right, left is 1 and 2, and then 3 will be up, and then 4 will be down. Now, this is important, the structure for me, because I'm basing, rather than doing like, if this was a plus sign, doing 1, 2, 3, and 4, in our animations, I will always know that 1 is right, 2 is left, and if we continue that through everything, I can use animational triggers rather than running it by a title. So let's say I know that the first 4 are idles, and then the next 4 are movements, and then the next 4 are like pickup directions. I can always keep the number direction. It's a multiplication of 4 in either direction. So it could be like, if you're idle right, plus 4 for the next, like if you're idling right and you left click to attack or whatever your interaction is, we can then say, you know, right idle plus 4, and we know that from its position here on the animation tree as 0, or in this case the first slot, we can then add 4 to that, and that'll give us the attack after this animation. See how like we're adding 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4, which would be the start of the next rotation. If we added a new animation and called this move right. We'll call this run. We might add a walking animation later, but for now we'll do a run right. And so rather than flipping the card and doing like only one animation on the right side and then flipping that, mirroring it to that way, to left to duplicate it, we actually have independent animations. There's a couple different ways you can do this, but effectively, if we add 4 now, or minus 4 from wherever we are, we now know that we'll always hit the right animation direction for what we're doing. So consistency here is really important. Going into our sprite, let's go back to our idle in the right direction, 0 through 3. Let's import those into the game. Add sprite idle left. 0 to 3. Perfect. These are idles, so they need to be looped, right? We got to make sure that we loop. That's a little fast for what I want, I think, on this character. No, that's way too fast. I made that faster. Let's preview this at 1. Yeah, I like 1. Or 0.1. Have a second here. We're going to loop that one as well. Let's add idle up. Idle up. There it is. I was like, one of these is not like the others. Couldn't remember. All right. Now we have all 4 of our idle directions. And for now, that'll be fine. So now that we have a player, we can drag them into the scene. In our camera manager, we always want the camera to be centered on an object, and we want that to be centered on the player object. Now, if when I get to multiplayer, this is going to be something that I'm going to have to overcome and rewrite. We would have to check for if the ownership of the camera, of that camera that's spawning for that player, is for that player, and then link to that. But that's like server and client related bits that I'm not even going to touch right now. So really what we want to do, though, on everything we can before we add in multiplayer, although I don't usually, like, I wouldn't recommend doing it the way I'm doing it. I know that there's a really cool plugin that I can use that'll help in all of this, but when we get to multiplayer, it'll be a whole section that we do. So camera. So now we have, that should center us, yeah, on our player. And now if we use the arrow keys, we can see, it's kind of hard to see, but you can tell he's kind of moving up and down. Now there's nothing there to signify that he's actually moving, really. So we don't know what's going on there, but that'll be okay. So, now that we have that, we want to go into reconfiguring our player, right? So we have some options here. We have the default controls built in to our player character at the moment. Give me a second. I'm gonna take another drink of water. What was I gonna say? I got ADHD, so my brain's only half working. Right, player states. So now this is where our debug menu starts coming into play. We're going to rotate through some of our player debug information. I think that it would be ideal to start probably in the debug features. So let me pull up some debug information. Let's see, properties, debug. Gonna have some debug tests, or like text. The question is, what do I want to put here? I think I'll have to handle that in code. I'm just, in my head here, I'm considering what the I didn't plan for this, so I'm trying to think in my head what's going to be the best mechanic for us to use here. Okay, well, you know, we might actually start with the player finite state machine. Yeah. Okay. Let's see here, guys. What do we want to do? All right. So we're going to start adding some variables to our player. We know that we need a finite state machine text. So here we're going to say player finite state machine. So FSM. And actually, we're just going to call it PFSM. Hopefully we don't ever forget what that is. I don't think so. And then we're going to leave that as a string. So, we're going to be changing the states here. So jumping, falling, death, that sort of thing. And what ends up happening in a finite state machine, there's tons of YouTube videos if you want to learn about them, but effectively we're isolating our script and kind of reinstating what our player is able to do in between these different independent working construct. So imagine for a minute that we have our movement, right? And whenever we press a movement key, we want our player to animate, we want to change into a state of moving, and we want our game to know that that's what our player is doing. Now, we can then normally, you know, if you're building a prototype, you can throw all that kind of into one script, and it gets messy, but you can sometimes organize it. And it's like whenever you press W, move up, you know, S, move down, or arrow keys, or what, you know, whatever joystick, and then when you are in a movement state, you can only do certain actions. So in your game, if you don't want the player to be able to jump while they're walking for whatever reason, you can say you can initialize a state. And so we kind of isolate our script so that way we have a jump script that handles what we can do while we're jumping. We have a movement or a dashing script. So like if you can't attack while you're dashing, you have to finish your dash before you can attack. Finite state machines are how we control those variables rather than like toggling with just booleans and having a bunch of, we sort of isolate what independently the player can do, or the controls that are functionable in each step of that code, rather than one overarching code sheet that controls everything. Hopefully that helps. And so we're gonna leave this, and we're actually gonna set it at in the init state. And so this is the initialization state. This tells us in our debug, when we set up our I'm actually just gonna name this player finite state machine. I will forget. It'll tell us in our debug what's going on there. So we also now want to add in our game a new layer. We're going to call this layer debug. And so we're going to put the debug UI interface above. And now our camera is this big boundary of a box. And we're saying, while we're in development of the base layer camera, because each camera, there's a camera per layer, we are going to frame our UI inside of this, and then the inside of our game, even if like there, you know, we zoom in and like when we start the game, it'll scale the camera setting. So our camera is always at this resolution, or like zoom scale, whatever. Hopefully, well, you'll see. So we're going to add a text, and we're going to call this debug. And the font, for me, is irrelevant right now. We will change it later. And this is just going to say text for now. And we're going to drag this and put it right there. So now, when we play our game, right? Uh-oh. Maybe I'm wrong. Am I wrong about that? Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, I'm absolutely wrong about that. All right, what we need to do is also zoom our debug layer, and then we want the debug layer to also be with the player, I think. Let me start that preview over again. Oh no. No, we don't want that. Maybe we don't center it. Wait. I thought that... Oh, maybe it's a layer setting. What happened here? Edit properties. Did I bork it? I thought... Huh. Let me think about this in my head real quick. I'm making stuff up, guys. I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna open up Tfue. It's another game that I've been working on. And we're gonna open up our what key did I make the development button? Whoa! I think no, development mode has to be on right now. Oops. Let me check my debug events, Debug Manager, game scene. Okay. number pad is pressed. Add and subtract. Okay. I had to figure out what... Oh, wrong button. I had to figure out what my key was. All right. So, let me see if I can show you a more... oh, that's really loud. Okay, so... There. So here, you can see that I have various states happening. And what we want is to make sure that the debug is the UI interface is where it should be. Yeah, so let's figure out what's going on there. Let's see here. We want to go to our game scene. And it's way out there. Where do I put... Oh. Okay. So, we are going to add a new condition that puts our debug text, which we don't actually want to do in here. What am I doing? We need to start a event sheet for our debug management. So we're going to create a new extension, and we'll call this the debug manager. Inside of that, in our game scene, just like our camera, if we want to bring it into our scene, debug manager, bring that in there, keep it nice and organized. All right. So first, we're going to create we're going to have multiple events happening. Oh, that's not what I want. We want multiple event groups happening. Goodness. Event group. We're going to call this Debug Visibility. Visibility. I have reading problems. So, you know, if you see misspellings or something, shout at me, because chances are I won't notice them, because I'm a dummy. Okay. All right. So, we want at the scene start, at the beginning of the scene, hide the debug, and now we can remove that that hidden debug text. Oh no. Okay, that actually has to stay there because we're hiding the group here. Here, no, we're gonna do the same thing. Yeah, we're gonna hide the debug group. We don't need this one anymore, actually. We'll leave the script there because I'm sure there's gonna be some stuff at the start of the scene that we want to do. But for now, you will manage it through the debug manager. So, you can add comments in the system if you really wanted to. Let's see. Set items to, or set debug menu to hide at scene start. Sometimes it's nice to just set yourself won't display during gameplay, right? When toggled hide. So now we just have some sort of little inscription here to let us know what's what, right? Gonna copy that, and we're gonna make another one. This kind of helps me. There's a couple different ways you can go about setting up your documentation, sorry, for your game. One of the things I brought up here is draw.io. One of the things that you might want to do while developing a game flowchart is kind of creating yourself a visual logical board, right, that you can kind of follow in terms of steps. So, like, you know, this could be at game start, what do we want to happen? This is the next thing. And then you define what that next thing is and how it functions. And so effectively, though, that's what I'm doing here. So following events, show, hide, and control position of the debug items. The debug text list. Sure. So we don't want this to be available to everyone. So I think what we're gonna do is game is running in the preview. So only when I'm previewing the game can I do this. We always want this next thing to happen while these are the conditions. So when we're previewing the game, we want to change the text. So text, and we want to start setting text. So what we want to do is we'll start with the player fs finite state machine, and we're going to run it like that and do finite state machine plus. Okay, so all of this actually has to be in quotes. So what we want to do is have these quotes show up. I think I need to do it like this because so we'll do this, and we'll do change the text of state. No, we're just gonna call this state. I will mess all of this up if I call it something else. So we want state to add the variable of player variable string, and we want this to be called player finite state machine, right? So now and afterwards, when we're done there, we're going to, before we close this up, we're going to add a new line into our bracket, right? And now we have one line for that text. And then we can continue our state writing if we wanted to add more debug. So later we'll add more debug, but for now that's good. And we want to pin it to a camera location. We want to place this. What is it called? I'm trying to remember the actions. Layers and cameras. We don't want to move the camera. We want to move the text.
Hey, it's Danger Ranger.
Oh, advertisements. Why are you talking to me about that? I don't even live there. I don't even live there. Why are you talking to me about that? That's wild. I live next to it, but I don't live there. Right. So we're actually gonna put the text at a position. At position. We're gonna set the X to let's say 16 off of the top and 16 down from the top. Wait, that won't work because that'll be the big screen, right? This is, hold on here, my brain. We need to set this to, okay, we need to set this to a screen height. This should be width for one, so it should be screen width minus screen width again, because we want to add, that'll put it at 0, so that'll be like right on the edge, I think. So screen, I suck at math, so we're gonna you laugh at me while I fumble over this. Screen width, or screen width. the position is the full screen width minus the full screen width. So that way we know it's at 0, 0. And that way, and the reason why I'm doing this is because it's set to the screen, the actual width of the screen. So I think when we zoom in, that should be true. Let's run this. Okay. That did not go where I thought it was going to go. Oh, because I'm not pinning that camera to the player. Finite state machines are like doing this is interesting. Okay, we're gonna do this on the debug layer as well, and then we're going to center the camera of debug also on the player. That didn't work. What am I doing wrong here? Why is this becoming so complicated? What did I forget? What? I feel like I'm forgetting something. You know what? Hold on. All right. Okay, I realized what happened. So the debug, not that was a player. Player needs to be on the base layer. The debug was not on the right layer, for one. And yeah, already I can tell that it's working. Okay. So scrap everything that I've tried to recently explain to you. Wait, why is that visible? That text shouldn't be visible. Oh, I didn't add it to the debug group. Ugh. All right. I need coffee. Okay. So now we need to be able to toggle this on and off. So when we add a new condition, let's drag that in and make sure it's in the right section. Key pressed. So when the number pad, plus, we'll do the number pad add. When that key is pressed, we want to show the debug group. And then in the opposite direction, when the subtract, we want to then hide the debug menu. All right, so now we have a beautiful on-off state switch for seeing what our character is doing. So now, right now, he's only in the initialized state. He has no other controls. And to make yeah, and so now we have a nice little debug section so we could test to make sure if our players are moving or not. And so we're going to go into our player events now and start working on our player, which is going to be a bit of an effort on our part. So now we're going to go into the player events. The first thing we want to do is create the player's finite state controller. And yeah, so we're going to go into our player events. We're going to add a new, actually we need to go and add a new event. We're going to call this player finite state machine. So let's move. I don't think okay, let's move that up to the top. That's going to be like the most important thing we do in our game probably for a while. So we are going to include an external event in our player script, and I'm doing that so I can hide these later on. And we're going to play the finite machine as our first call. And in our finite state machine, we need to first initialize our code here. So we're going to be kind of bouncing around between internal and external scripts. So the camera manager we can close, debug manager we can close. All right, we're going to go back to our game sheet. We're going to click the little button to initialize. We want this to only run in the game scene. And we want to first initialize our systems. So we're going to add a another external event. We want to add a event group. We want to call this initialize. I don't know why I capitalized all of that. Initialize. At the start scene. Let's try scene. At the beginning of the scene. Beginning is a code word. At the beginning of the scene, immediately we need to run a new code, and that code is going to be the player finite state machine initialization script. There we go. I had to think that through. Now the player initialization. Hello player. Oh, that's right there. I'm looking right at it. Okay, this one's pretty simple. As we build our finite state machine, we really just want to initialize our player for the first time. So we want this kind of builds a default debugger. We can kind of test to make sure our finite state machine is working by changing the player's maybe the starting animation of the player, or doing transitions. So because we are I'm not doing a Metroid. I'm not doing a side scroller, so I'm trying to think of how am I going to trigger this. Let's start with, I always start with an actions section. So in this event group, we have our actions, and we also have our transitions. So what happens, what you can do in the script, what you can do out of the script. So initially, let's say we're not dashing or anything. We want to initialize our character, so we're going to add a new script. We want to trigger this one time. So when this script initializes, we want to change the oh my goodness. You know what we're gonna do, guys? Give me a second. I'm killing it. I'm killing it. We're killing that. We're not doing YouTube. I'm gonna do something else real quick. I think it's a pretzel. Pretzel radio? Pretzel? Yeah. Huh. It used to be free. It is not anymore. Let's pull something else up real quick. I am tired of the advertisements. And I could not be cheap. That'd be great. But I'm cheap, so I'm not going to do that. This is all DMCA stuff. Whoa, that's wild. None of that is what I want. I lied. All right, we're just going to deal with YouTube ads today.
And then I switched to Liberty Mutual and saved hundreds. I know, exactly.
They're coming straight in. Trust me, I've got...
Okay. Settle down. Valorant, settle down. I don't want that right now. Give me just a second. Almost done. All right. We are back to where we were, fellas. All right. So, sorry about that. Back to what I was doing. We want to change the text variable. Now, I know that I did leave it as a string. So, what's really cool sometimes in gdevelop, not sometimes, all the time, if you make a variable and leave it as a string, you can then redefine it inside of your script, and you can like make it a boolean if you want. But we're not going to be doing that right now. We're going to be following the convention here. So we want to change the player's finite state machine value to the initialized state, because that's how we're starting it, right? So this is like we are launching into this state, and then once we get started in the game, we are going to change the state. So here, you know, if you're doing like a Metroidvania or some sort of side scroller, you could say, you know, when in the transition, how are we going to transition out of this state? So we could say, you know, when we fall or after we fall and we land on the ground, change that. But we are just going to do a basic initialization. Here we could do a skin change if we wanted to. So let's say, you know, we go from a blank, and actually, just to show you that, let's do that now. Oh, that's gonna, just for an example, if I created a new animation that was blank, we could start during the initialization step on a particular frame of that let's say it was just called blank, right? 0 is blank. Then we could say, hey, when we first create the character, it's going to default to the first state, which is blank, and then we'll know that this script is successfully initialized when, let's say we're going to save a global variable. Actually, this is a great time to add game state. Yeah, no, let's do that. This is perfect. So, going back, just kind of backwards, a lot of you know, coding is a lot like this, right? So we want to go into our global variables. Where are they? Global variables, and we're gonna add a variable, and we're gonna call this game state. Now we're gonna add another variable. I think there's a way. We're gonna make this an array. Structure? I want to say that it's a structure. Yeah, we're going to be using structures. So let's remove this variable. So now we have game state. Now in our game state, these are the various things that might be happening in our game. Oh, I'm bouncing all over here. I'm trying to open up a browser tab here. Trying to open you up so I can see chat, as well as this. There we go. So let's see here. We want to add a game state structure. Let's see. One of the game states that we can do is, let's say, checkpoint. So if we were doing a side scroller where, let's say, we're doing a Mario level, as you progress to the level in Mario, you have a beginning and you have an end. Now, in some of them, there is like in Super Mario Bros., there is a flag that you touch, and that's a checkpoint. And so, or if you're doing any other major cutscenes or something, let's say you go through a door, something happens, the door closes, and now every time the player loads back in, they're going to hit that checkpoint. So we're going to do this will be a number, and we're going to start at 0. For game state, let's add another variable here called, and we're going to add this above game state. We're going to call this cutscene. Let me check my phone. My phone is blowing up. We're going to do a cutscene. This is going to be a number. We're going to do 0 on the cutscene. And cutscenes can be like opening up your inventory. We don't want your player to be able to move while we're doing that. And so we're going to add a cutscene variable. We can do... oh, this is perfect too. We can go into our game state and we can add a new structure. And we're going to call this... these could be collectibles. We want that. Or actually, we can do stats or health. We'll do health for now. And I didn't mean... No, we want to do stats. We'll do stats. And in that, we'll do one child. We'll call stats health for now. And that'll be a number. And we'll start at, let's say 2 or 10 for convenience sake. We'll do 3. We'll do 3 just for testing. And this is like, now I can access this via codes via gamestate.stats.health, and then we can check at certain variables and all of that. So you can also add other states here or unlocks. Let's say you unlock a bow. If you had like an unlock feature, let's do that as well, actually, just to prep for our game. I think we're gonna need this. So we'll go to our new variable, and underneath, we'll move it underneath stats here in a second. We'll call it structure, and we'll call it unlockables. This has, we can do, we'll call it the mallet for now. So now we have the, and this will be a Boolean. So, basically, whether or not we start with a weapon or anything like that, we can kind of trigger those events, and I'll show you that here in a little bit. So, so I don't go too far down this rabbit hole and get completely lost in what I'm doing. We're gonna leave that for now. Gonna hit apply. Oh, we already did that. Okay. Let's save this, just in case. And let's go back to so now in our game events at the very beginning when we are launching our player's finite state, we can now check actually in the game scene, we can now in the game scene after, let's say at the beginning of the scene, we might need to check for a checkpoint. So let's set if the global value of the game state is, let's see, so of the variable, this will be a global variable. So global variables text. This is a number variable. So if the variable of why is this going to a game scene? Oh, it's because I chose the wrong one. There we go. If the variable of game state checkpoint is equal to 1, so let's say 0 is we can then move the player to a different spot. So if it is 1, then we'll teleport forward in the game to another checkpoint. For now, we don't have it set, and so we're not going to set it quite yet. We want to initialize in this stage as well. Let's see, we're going to come down here. We're going to add a new event group into this group. It's going to be alongside this. We want it to be in the same category, just not under the control of this game state. So this is going to be the, like, let's say, quick unlock settings. So while we're doing, let's call it debug quick lock settings, and then we're going to add a condition, which we can now, let's say we at the beginning of the scene, we want to set, we'll add a comment here so I know what the heck I'm doing. So, I don't like the way... Do they all have to be yellow? I wonder about that. Is there a way to change that? Or is it like a... Is there a different type of comment? Whatevs. All right. I wish I could make that red or something. It's driving me nuts. I don't like that it's yellow. It hurts my eyes. Let's say change these settings to spawn with, or to start game with items unlocked. So we can say, like, you know, if we are playing through a certain part of our game and we want to add settings, or let's say, you know, you later on, you in the story you unlock a weapon. Well, we want to prototype that weapon right now. So I'm laying the foundations for what's to come. So what we're gonna do is at the beginning of our scene, because that's what's going on up here, trail this down, we need to change an action. We want to set the so we're doing a boolean. Sorry, I'm trying to code and I don't need to, so I'm thinking like in coding while I'm trying to find the visuals. We want to change the boolean variable of a global value, and we want to change the unlockables of mallet to true. So we don't currently have a mallet, but if we did, it would be toggled on to true now. So the game says we do have a mallet. We don't have the coding yet, what happens when we have a mallet, or when that is unlocked, but we can add that later. So right now, we don't, because we don't have one built, we're going to say now false. So we don't have a mallet, but we do have an unlockable mallet in the game states. Boolean is set to false, which it currently already is, but we want to make sure when we launch our game, it's set to false. Until we test it. So now that we have that, we can go back to our hero finite state machine, and we can say that let's see, let's go to our player of, we're in our player finite state machine. We can now start adding states to our state machine. So let's say cutscenes, right? Those are important. We're going to do cutscenes in this game. And those have conditions of, in a cutscene, if the variable of the global value, so we're checking our entire game, if our text variable of cutscene is equal to 1, 0 being off, cutscene being 1, we want to initialize the hero's controls in a cutscene. And we don't want our player to move around. And so there's a couple things we can do here. Honestly, it's kind of, we might want, let's say we're going to add inventory later. So we do know that there's going to be an inventory system in our game. And in that, we want to make sure that our inventory is accessible in our cutscene. So we're going to pre-plan ahead. So right now it'll be empty, but we want the player, oh my goodness, player finite state machine to run the hero finite state machine cutscene. Excuse me. Okay. The player initializer. Oh. Okay. I have ADHD and I got distracted, but it's all right. We'll get there in a second. So the next thing we want to do is we want to add an external link, and we're going to link this to the cutscene. So if we're in the cutscene state, play this script. Well, this script right now, so into here, has no control. There's nothing in it. So we're going to leave that for now. Later on, we're going to add a scene that, or a feature to control your user interface. So whenever we'll go into a cutscene when there's an actual cutscene, and also every time we open the menu, we want our player to not be controllable. And so we're saying at this state, what can you do if this is on? And it's very specific. If this global variable isn't set to, you know, isn't, if it's enabled, it'll overwrite whatever the rest is going on. If that makes sense. So we can add player control in our cutscenes, but for now we're going to leave it out. And we are going to add the main feature of our game. So now we're going to go into here and say not in a cutscene, just so we know what's going on here. So now that we know what's going on, when a cutscene ends, we want it to resume player control. And so we're going to set the global value of the cutscene number to 0. So now we have all of our player states are going to start falling underneath here. And this is where we start controlling each section of our character. So we're actually going to name this player controller. I think that's a much more realistic non-cutscene. There we go. Now we know what's going on. So if the value is 0, we need to add, and now because it has to, in the hierarchy in this, it has to make sure it comes underneath this section, we start adding what our player can do. And so we want to add a new event group for, we know we want the player to move. We want them, in this case, I think we named it run. So we want them to run. We want the character to, and this is all of the states, including death. But we will first go into, let's see here, run. I'm trying to think what else we're going to do in our game. This is where a list of what I know I would be able to do. We know that we have to idle, right? So idle actually should come first. So we have to idle. We have to run. And for now, that's going to be our two main controls that we're going to build right now. So let's go. So now let's see here. I'm getting messages. I gotta make sure I'm gonna mute that real quick so you guys don't hear that while I'm doing what I'm doing. So we need to make a, and this is where things can get a little messy, but this is so important. When we go into server making, we can really make sure that the player that's in control of the elements is only pulling, these will be initialized sort of locally. And then they'll just send signals, pings, sorry, I'm getting messaged here. Okay. We're gonna add a player. So now this is the player's finite state machine idle. So now we have the player idle. Let's move it up on the, oops, so we're gonna open that with the game scene. We're gonna import it into the idle state. And so we're going to say, now this is where we implement the, since we already implemented actually the finite controller for, I'll show you here. I'm trying to think of how to explain it while I'm also trying to do it. I think it's better if I just show you. We'll go into here and we will change the text, text variable of our player. So actually we'll go player text variable. We want to change the player's state when we are, the text needs to be changed to idle, right? When we're in this state. So when we are in the idle state, when we're in the idle state, we want to initialize our idle state. So we're just going to take that and initialize the idle, right? So whenever this, so later on, as we start controlling our player, we'll be changing this player state into, right? So now actually now I can go back into our initialization and say at the beginning of our game, set it to this, right? Trigger this once, but also just to make sure that the script is working, we want to change the player's value to idle. So now we know when the game initializes if the script is working well in our player initializer. It'll automatically boot up into our idle animation. So now that we have idle set, we can build out our idle script. So now when we're in idle, all right, there's a lot going on here. Actually, all right, this is gonna be weird. We have to add. We want controller support for this game. I know I want it right out of the gate, and so we have to do a little bit of prep work to make that happen. So we got to go back into our global variables, and we're gonna have to add all of our keyboard features. It's kind of a long process here, of like adding each feature that we're gonna need into this global list, but it's so worth it in the end. I like doing it this way. So we get we allow the player to then customize their controls later, and that's why we're doing it this way. So we're gonna name this one. This first variable is gonna be keyboard up. We're gonna snake case this because these are controls in my head. We're gonna call this up, and now this is gonna be what the key is called in the game engine. So when you go to add a key, there's a bunch of lists of them, and I'll show you when I'm done here. Left. All right. Okay. Sorry. Right. Add variable keyboard down. I also got to make sure I don't capitalize. There we go. For now, that's all he can do. He can't dash or jump or anything, so we don't need it. We might need a attack button. Actually, we do need an attack button. So we'll do that will be a mouse click, so we won't do an attack button. This would be what we want to do. In this case, actually, I want to do W, D, A, and then S. And then we're going to add the gamepad controls. So now we're going to have, let's go. Oh my naming conventions are everywhere today, guys. We're just going to do a camel case all the way through. I just can't today. Gamepad up. And this one will be up. gamepad right. Now, these, I think, I'm just going to capitalize these ones because I want to be able to tell the difference at a glance at like what I'm dealing with, whether it's controller or, and so all my controllers will be capitalized and all my keyboards will not, or not be full caps lock left. My brain, guys, today, again, just all over the place, but we're going to get this done. I find it very cathartic. I know that, like, in this case, no one's watching right now, not that I'm aware of. And so I'm just babbling to myself, really. But who knows? Maybe there's someone secretly lurking out there. All right. And for now, I think that that'll work. So we have the basic movement controls baked now into our global variables. So now what we want to do is allow these variables to be adjusted. I think I've made a mistake. Those might need to be tied. If we're going to do multiplayer, those might need to be tied to the player for like server compatibility. But it'd be fine to change those values over later. So I'm not going to think too hard on it. So now that we have that set, we need to go back to our idle. And we need to start checking if our player's able to move. So we're going to start with a transition into our ground state. So in our idle, the first thing that we're looking for is a transition state into what next our player can do. So, and this is true for and once you create the fundamental of your like transitions, you can copy them over, and like there's only one transition in a movement, right? For the most part, WASD or whatever our movement keys are. So in this case, we're going to call this transitions. Because there's no jumping, we don't have to do like on the ground. Like, you know, if there was jumping, we could say, we would name this ground events, but we'll just call this player movement. And underneath that, we'll do another one, and we'll call this player movement. The subcategory to player movement will be, what are we doing? We're running. So this is when we run. So when we're running, because we set all these conditions, right? If one of these conditions is true, so we need to add an if statement. Or, I think is what it's called in this case. Or, if one of these conditions is true, if the button of the gamepad, so this is where we need to start adding controllers. So we need to go to our extensions, and we need to add control pads. This would allow the game to be split screen, as well as, I mean, we're just adding gamepad controller, and this, we can also do this with mobile, right? So if any of these are true, I'll be adding mobile support later. I want to make sure that within testing, I can get it moving almost immediately. So if this is true, we need to set the player's text variable of the player's finite state machine to run. And now, again, remember, guys, because of how we set this up before, got to add quotes around that. We're going to set it to run. So in our player finite machine, right, we're looking for I can close that. We're looking for an idle state, and now we can add our run state. And we're just going to copy the idle over, and we're going to call this run. And then we need to make a running prompt. So going back, though, into our idle transition into a, from idle, we can run. And then we can also add, we'll probably add an attack as well. So we'll add an attack. Because when we're sitting still, you should be able to punch. And then we'll name this attack. All right. So, if the player is running, and or to change these controls, we now have to go to all right, let's see here. We want all right. Yeah. Okay. If the button oh, I think we have to add the controller. No, hold on. If gamepad? No, it's because I have player selected. What am I doing? Gamepad. There we go. So if we're not going to check if a controller's connected right now, so we're just going to globally assume that at any time you plug in a controller, it's just going to work. If a gamepad button is pressed, and the button in this case is going to be a global variable, so global variable, and we want this to be a string, a global variable string, and we're going to call gamepad left. If gamepad left is pressed, oops. If the controller is 1, so here we're planning for a button mapping, right? So I was right. We do need to capitalize them. So if this pad, if the button of gamepad 1 is pressed, we're going to close attack for now. If the gamepad 1 is pressed, if we got to do this for all 4 directions, so if the gamepad left is right, up and down, any of those are pressed. Oh, that's not right. All right, down. That's an M. Come on, bro. All right. If any of those are pressed, we're going to move over into the run category. And so if the gamepad buttons are pressed, do that. If the gamepad, if the sticks as well, so we need to change this to a stick force. If the gamepad 1 stick is left, if the left stick is moved, if the gamepad left stick, come on, left, is pushed in the direction of what is going on here. All right, we're going to try this again. If the stick, if gamepad 1 is in the left position and the direction is left as well, and we're just kind of doing that if the left stick is in the direction of right, if the left stick is in up, This is right. Gotta make sure I capitalize them. Left. Actually, no, that one has to be lowercase left. And then this one's down. Okay. I guess it doesn't really matter. I'm gonna fix them so that it doesn't bother me because I'm dumb and I should just watch the prompts as I'm writing and it would save me a lot of time. Oh, all right. So basically, any of these controller buttons are pressed. And also if we're gonna have to map the controllers and the keyboard bindings here in a little bit, but we'll do that in a second. So keyboard, if key pressed, if key, in this case, we want to do global. Oops, we don't need quotes. Oh yeah, we do. I just global variable string, and if the string is keyboard up is pressed, if keyboard down is pressed, if keyboard left and right to right and left. Okay. Right. Whoa. I don't know what happened there. I don't know what I did. All right. Right tight. What? No. Let's. All right. Why? What is happening here? I'm pretty sure I typed this right. I mean left, but yes. Left up. Okay. No more buttons. All right, there we go. So if any of these buttons are pressed, now we move into the run state. Now we should be able to preview this that we're in the idle state, perfect, but we have no controls to move yet. It doesn't, the game, because we haven't mapped them, doesn't know how to change the state yet. So now that we have that, we can start working on our player controller script, which is where we run all of our animations. And that way our states aren't tied into our object manager. Let's see here. How do I want to do this? Events idle. Events run. We need to work on our run. So movement in our run first. Okay, so we need to work on our run. So now, currently, I need to map my buttons. And I'm trying to remember where I need to do that at. Reading documentation real fast. We want to set our movement. Keyboard. Right, left, up, down. First of all, gotta go back to, I think, let's see what we're gonna be doing here. Behaviors. Let's see. Game scene. There's a missing something here, and it's right in front of my face. So give me just a second. Ambient particles, we don't need that. Debug events, don't need that. Enemy events, don't need that. Not yet. I need it. Okay, so first of all, I need to also add a controller. Gamepad. Top down gamepad mapper. There we go. Analog? Yeah. Top down movement. Good. Turn off default controls. So our idle state should be changing if I touch any of the buttons. But I think I goofed that up because I think in my global variables, let's go up. Let's try this like this. Left. Right. Down. Now I could be. Okay, that did work. Why did the other one not work? So that immediately changed my scripting. So I open this up, and now see there our running is moving. That means that my naming in the global variables is wrong. Does it have to be W like this? Let's see. Oh, no. So it's not that. What key is it? Maybe it's just W. Let's try it like that. No. What is going on? What about W? Little W? Little W? Yeah, there we go. Okay. All right. Little W, little A, little D, little S. All right. Now we have our movement operating here. So first thing is, now that we know that that's working, we're going to save that because we don't want to lose any of that valuable data. Okay. And then we're going to set to run. Now we're going to work on our run script. So another external player FSM run. Now we got our idle manager down here and our run. Cutscene manager isn't very important right now. All right, so now we're going to copy this in and change it to run. Okay, in the run script, we're not using an independent hitbox yet for the player to spawn onto. Like, I know it's common practice to separate your player sprites from the hitbox, but in this case, I don't feel like that's necessary. So let's let's see here. Let's see. Okay. So because of, sorry, I was taking a minute to just wrap my brain around how we're going to be doing this. So these are actions. So again, we're going to create an action, and then we're going to create another event group. And inside of action, we're going to call this movement. Okay, so this is the main controller of all of our movement now. And this is where doing a separate character variable for, or like animation controller might be good. And so I think actually in our player, we're going to add new object variables, and we're going to just call this new variable direction. And now that I'm thinking about it, now that I'm actually in here looking at this, we're going to call this null. Actually, we start in the right direction. Yeah. So we know that our initial direction is initial state, actually. We'll do right. We'll call it right. Now, actually, earlier I was thinking if you're making a single player game, you can put those the player's stats and health and everything inside. I was saying that before. We want to actually make the structure here and call this stats. And so one of our stats is health. Oh my goodness, we're gonna call that health. And that's a number, and we're gonna call that 3 for now. Okay, so or we can call it hits if we know that a certain amount of hits kills us. Yeah, we might do a bubble system like Legend of Zelda. So let's call it hits. We're gonna start with 3 hits, and then we're dead. And I'll probably continue that naming convention through a bunch of stuff, so that works. And then we can go into our globals. If we're playing a single player game, this would make sense. And we also want unlockables to be player dependent as well, now that I'm thinking about it. So we're going to just delete that and delete that. So that's going to mess up one of our scripts. It should automatically, this doesn't matter anymore. We would call this, we'll go back into our player, and then we'll add a new variable and call that another structure and call that unlockables. Okay. We're going to put that there, add an unlockable variable, which is a string called mallet. Did that backwards, mallet, and it's not a string, it's a boolean because I'm dumb, and it's set to false. So then we go back in here and we can change it from a global variable to just a regular variable, and it could be player unlockables mallet, and we're going to say that's true. So now our player will spawn with a mallet. We don't have that in our game yet, obviously, but if it is there, he can spawn with it. So or he or she, I suppose. So now that we have our movement down, we want to add a new condition, and it's an or statement. So this is where we start simulating our directions. So if one of these conditions is true, and we're going to start with, we're going to save ourselves some time here. So we're going to grab left. If left is true, or if stick left is true, or if keyboard left is true, we want to simulate the player, and we want to simulate the left key being pressed. And then when that happens, we also want to do this. So if only do this under the condition that the player variable, this is a text variable, if the player's direction variable does not equal right. And this will stop that weird glitch when you hold left and right and your character flops back and forth super fast. So if the player's direction does not equal right and these conditions are true, simulate the left. And then we're just going to repeat this as well for the right direction. So we're just going to go in here and change. Oh my goodness. It's going to be, actually, I think it's going to be faster if I grab them from here. So right, right. Can I not grab? Oh, right, right, and right. Copy those and paste them there. Okay, yeah. And then we're going to simulate not left, but the right direction. So now, state left, we're moving left. State right, we're moving right. And now what I want to do, though, is go into our debug, because we've added... it's actually not our debug. No, yeah, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Debug Manager. Now, inside of here, we want to, in this new line, we want to call this direction, and we want to get the players. I gotta add a plus sign here. So new line plus direction plus player dot variable string direction. Now, when we're in our debug mode, we should know whether we're running that. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, that makes sense. However, we also want to add a trigger event. We want to trigger this once. So whenever this happens, if you press the left direction, rather than keep pinging, because this one is going to keep pinging, as we hold the button, we want to continue to move in that direction. However, whenever we press this button one time, we want to change the player's string variable, which is a text variable. I hate that it's called text, not strings, but that's okay. Of direction, and we're going to set this to left. And then we are going to set this direction to right. And now when we initialize our character, we want actually the first state of direction no longer to be right. We want it to be initialized as well. I should have done that from the beginning. I was going to do it and then I didn't do it. So, okay. So now when we open this up, we have the directions that we're moving. My right direction is not working. So let's go back in here. And when we're going right, set the direction of the player to right. Why did that not work? You can move right. You can move left if the variable direction is not right. Right, okay. Now, this is where we add in a transition state. So now that's our movement, right? But because it's a movement, I'm going to keep it inside of movement. We're just going to add a new event and call it transitions. These are transitional events inside of the movement. So this is what happens when you come out of a movement. So if this is pretty straightforward, so we can just copy the left movement and we'll do the same thing here in a minute. If you highlight these and press J, not like that. If you do J, J, and J, if one of these conditions is true, if we are in the right direction, and in this case, we want to say if the direction of the player is left, because now we're looking at, so if the direction of the player is left is equal to left, and none of this is happening, we want to set our player's direction to left. Or not to, sorry, not direction. What am I doing? We want to set the direction to idle. And I believe, and this says basically, right, that when you're going left, let's go here. Left is working. It's because I added this condition, but there's a reason for that. My brain is preventing me from remembering, because we're gonna get the sprites based on direction, and then a state. And so we want to change the variable if the direction of the player does not equal right, and one of these is true. Change the text variable direction to left. Oh, okay. So we need to set this as well to the right direction, right? So we're actually going to copy all this, paste it down here. And again, nope. That's not right. Nope. So if that's not working, and the direction is, in this case, right, we want to not simulate the player. We want to change the animation, the direction to idle. All right. Now, we also want to transition out of... So now what this does is it allows us to go into an idle state. What's happening there? If the text variable direction is disabled, all right, I misplaced. I don't have my light on. I'm going to turn my light on so I can actually see what I'm doing. Okay. And we're almost back. I put? Ah. Okay, so we have this thing that's happening where I am moving, but because of how I've done this bit here, we're gonna disable this for now. I know I'm onto something here, but all right, for now we're gonna disable this left and right feature. And actually, I don't want to break it. I just want to disable it because I know I need it. Disable that. Disable. Can I not disable it? We're just gonna. Okay, that's fine. We'll just delete it. So in here, left, right, left, right, left, right. So now we know we're moving. We want to do that with all the directions. So here we go again. Sorry, I was talking to somebody. All right, so we're gonna delete these again and go back through and do the ups, up, 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 oh, oop, up, up, and up. Copy those. Dang it, there's so many directions. Okay, and then we're gonna simulate up, up key. All right. guys. Well, actually, I'm going to take a break here, being that it's pretty much already have done that. So I'm going to take a break and why did I see that you guys were talking to me, but it didn't show up in my pop-out? I feel so bad. What the heck? Oh no. Anyway, my apologies, guys. I'll see that in the future, and I'll do better. But I'm gonna end the stream now, and I'll talk to you all later. Thanks for watching, guys.